This video is sponsored by Ulanzi. It's quite a spicy title, that, isn't it? But bear with me, I will explain. I've had the Lumix S9 for just over a year now. I thought I'd give you my updated thoughts and explain my love-hate relationship with this camera. Let's talk about customizable JPEGs. The Lumix S9 with real-time LUT gives you uncompromised customizable JPEGs, better than any other camera that I've ever used, including Fujifilm. Because, right, if you really like a Fujifilm recipe, just turn it into a preset and a LUT, and then stick it on the S9, and then the S9 can do it just as well with extra customizing stuff on top. It really is the best, without much competition in my experience. So why is the Lumix S9 not like the king of the everyday carry? Well, it's a little bit plasticky, isn't it? It's not the sexiest camera compared to like the Fujifilm or the OM System OM3. I mean, I've really enjoyed customizing mine. I really like the look of mine. I guess there's no going back now. It's quite plasticky, isn't it? And it's quite weird ergonomically, which I'll talk more about in a bit. And most glaringly, for me personally, is like, the lens is a hench. Like, the camera might be small, but this is the 35mm f1.8 prime lens. That's a pretty small lens in full frame terms, but on the S9 it just makes the whole thing sort of front heavy and a little bit chunky. I mean, just for example, this would be a 17mm lens on micro four thirds versus the 35 on full frame. Huge difference, right? You can have a small camera body, but if you don't have the small lenses to back it up, we've got a bit of a problem. And internally in the spec, you do have that lovely full frame sensor, but all the real estate that takes up inside the teeny tiny body means we don't have a mechanical shutter. We don't have room for an EVF. We don't have room for a hot shoe, even. You know, if the sensor was smaller, perhaps all of those things would fit in. If only Panasonic had any experience at all in a smaller censored camera system. Back to the JPEGs. The JPEGs are superb. You can stick your LUTs on the S9 and you can get some really good examples straight out of camera. What I think I do personally with Fujifilm or the OM system cameras is I'm trying to replicate how I would edit in Lightroom in camera. And you can get there or thereabouts, or you could find something creative in a Fujifilm recipe. But for me, the S9 is literally, the odd wonky horizon aside, exactly verbatim how I would edit in Lightroom. There's no compromise, there's no close enough. It literally is, this is the preset I would use, this is what it looks like, and now it's online and it's done. Another thing that I love and use all the time with the Lumix S9 that no other camera that I own offers is the MP4 Lite open gate setting. It's that time of year again where I get to film my YouTube videos on a boat. So if you don't know, you can shoot in an open gate, a 4:3 video format, and then you can have your LUT baked into the video, so all the editing is done for you, and then you can transfer that onto your phone or your tablet and share it with the world vertically or horizontally. I love it because I'm obviously horizontal first, because yay for YouTube, but sometimes in life we need to have vertical content, and having something with a bit of headroom, like I guess you can see me here and this goes all the way to here, means that I can transfer things vertically and horizontally and not have to film things twice. Bonus points because I can get it straight on my phone without faffing. I've been using this for my Instagram stories and also more recently for my TikTok. God help me, I'm trying to do TikTok. Please follow me if you're over there. And one thing I've found super inspiring, genuinely inspiring, is leaving my Lumix S9 set up in my little office and just being able to film things as and when I need. And I'll show you how that all works later. So with all of this, we have real-time LUT, we have great video, we have IBIS, we have a flippy screen, we have a mic input, we have incredible face detection and phase detect autofocus. I know my accent makes that sound like it's the same thing, but like face and eye detection and phase detect autofocus means you should have a wonderful content creation machine. And you do, but also sometimes you don't. I do think there are a lot of compromises with the S9. Like, just imagine if Panasonic made a updated G100 or the GX9, for example. I would be like, day one, grab your hands, that would pretty much solve all of the things that I would like in a camera. Both of those cameras in question do have an incredibly good advantage over the S9, and that is the Lumix S9 can be a bit of an ergonomic nightmare. I have a lot of like soap bar-y style cameras in my collection, but what they all have in common and why they work is because the lenses that I can attach to them, or the fixed lenses that are attached to them, are very small and not front heavy. With the S9, the minute you even put a moderately sized lens on it, suddenly all top heavy, you've got a strain here, it's slippery, and oh, did I mention that all your blooming spinny wheel of doom settings here are where you would rest your wrist to keep it upright. So I do think, and I don't say this lightly because I hate adding bulk to a camera that's designed to be small. What's the point? I do think in this instance, 9 times out of 10 with the S9, I will use a grip with it. I have two. I have a cage and also like a half cage, and it does make the whole thing feel better. But how much of that is a little bit annoying because now we have a less small form factor, which was a selling point to begin with. Even if we kept the S9 body identically and didn't go down the G100 route or the GX9 route with a little bit of a grip, it wouldn't be half as much as an issue if it was a Micro Four Thirds camera because the lenses are all tiny. So you don't have that front heavy, messy sort of setup. Why am I sitting cross-legged on the chair? Maybe that's a metaphor for the S9. I'm using a chair in a weird way, trying to make it work, when just sitting in it normally would be better. There are a few stock lenses available, and there's a pancake one, which I'll talk about in a minute, but the one that was originally bundled with this camera is this chunky boy. And yes, I have got a green skin on it, and yes, it's the most hideous combination ever. It just really is illogical, in my opinion. I get the principle of wanting a small full-frame camera, but the practicalities of actually achieving that is very, very hard. One thing to give Lumix their due is they did bring out the pancake lens. I got a chance to use it and it's very, very compact. However, do you know what else it is? Really narrow, stingy aperture. I reckon if you had a f2.8 Micro Four Thirds stock lens, which would be smaller or thereabouts, versus the narrow aperture on this full frame pancake lens, the equivalency would make the depth of field look exactly the same. So we're fixing one problem, yay, we have a small lens, but now it sort of looks like a Micro Four Thirds camera because you've got no depth of field to play with. Big sensor, narrow aperture is exactly the same outcome really as small sensor, wide aperture in terms of how much depth of field you'll get and the quality of the image. Of course, the full frame sensor will always have a bit of an advantage in low light because of pixel density and the dual native ISO in the S9, which I'll talk about in a bit, which is also a really, really good thing. But in terms of like day-to-day use, with Micro Four Thirds, you can get a small camera with a small lens and a wide aperture, and there's not any faffing going on. It just works. It's literally the whole point. So in order to get the best out of the workflow that the S9 can offer me, here is a setup that I've currently been using in my office. I've been using the JJ06 GlideGo tripod by Ulanzi, who are the sponsor of today's video. And this tripod has many tricks up its sleeve. Let me show you. First of all, for video, the middle column extends and then bends over, and every piece of this tripod can move really smoothly to get you some very interesting camera movement. It can also help to maneuver the camera into awkward positions. Like you could very easily use this overhang as an overhead shot for something that I'm doing on my desk. The double benefit of that middle column shooting all the way up is this is by far the tallest tripod I've ever used in my entire life. And I love how the legs just sort of open. That's the official noise, by the way. They go. It's a very quick process to get this tripod set up. You can get the camera on and off instantly. It just snaps on and snaps off. So if I'm working in the office and have a quick idea, I can grab my S9, click it into place, and I can be filming within minutes. So if you'd like to learn more about the UlanziGlideGo tripod, check the link in the description and let's get back to the nerdiness. So of all the compromises in the Lumix S9, and just to recap, we have no mechanical shutter, no EVF, no hot shoe, and we don't have two dials. You know, like a lot of cameras have like a front dial and a back dial to change settings. On the S9, we have a spinny wheel of doom on the back. Of all of the compromises, the thing that has tripped me up and I miss the most is the mechanical shutter. Now, if you don't know, there's two drawbacks to the electronic only shutter. Well, three, I suppose, but Two I'll talk about. One is it gives you like this silent, soulless experience. When you click the button, nothing clicks, nothing clacks. It's just, the photo's done. It's like a phone. And then the second thing, which is more worrying, is if you are in an electronic lighting environment, which, you know, if you shoot in the city, if you shoot indoors, if you shoot in your blooming office like I do, this is where you can run into problems. You have to be hyper aware of your shutter speed. The reason being is electricity is pulsing per second. It oscillates per second. I think that's the right term. Someone tell me in the comments if it's not. And in a PAL region in the UK, for example, and a lot of Europe, that is a 50th of a second. So if you put your camera as a shutter speed of 50th of a second or 100th of a second, or sometimes 200th of a second you can get away with, then you don't get any nastiness introduced into your scene. However, if you knock that slightly, which is very easily done with the spinny wheel of doom on the back and the heavy front lenses and everything I've talked about, even if you're at 60th of a second, we get banding. So this is a 50th of a second video and 60th. Can you see we're getting a little bit in? That's literally 1/10 difference. 60th, 50th, 60th, 50th. And then we can go 80th, bad. And then 100, it tidies up again because that's now a multiple of 50. But 125, uh-oh. And one thing that I've always thought about the S9 is it seems entirely at odds with who this camera was originally aimed for. This was aimed for content creators moving up from their phone. And how many blooming people using their phone understand about oscillating electricity? How many people will have got the S9, saw banding in their photos and gone, oh my God, something's broken? I'm not a camera engineer, so I am just assuming at this point. I could be completely wrong, who knows? But even the GM5 and the G100 in the Micro Four Thirds lineup does have a mechanical shutter. So it has to be all the real estate of the sensor in the S9 that's meant that there isn't any room for a mechanical shutter. And then my little layman brain goes, well, if we had a Micro Four Thirds version, perhaps we could fit in a mechanical shutter, perhaps we could fit in an EVF, perhaps we could fit in a hot shoe, perhaps we could stick an extra dial on the back if we're feeling fancy. And then literally every single compromise has gone, along with the massive lenses. Now, just to be very clear about this, because I don't want to put anybody off, I use the S9, I love it. If you are thinking, oh my God, banding's the end of the world, it will affect some photos. It's an absolute foregone conclusion. If you use the S9 a lot, at some point you will run into this issue. But it might be 1 in 500 shots that you might be compromised with. It might be 1 in several thousand. If you're a blooming landscape photographer or only shoot street photography during the day, you may never come into contact with this problem. However, I found that I have. And one time that comes to mind with me in particular was I was on the underground and I wanted to get a photograph of going down the escalator, and I needed my shutter speed to be faster than 100th of a second or it would blur. And it wouldn't blur in the fun way, it would blur in the, oh, she's took the photo wrong kind of way. So I had the option of lowering my shutter speed and making everything really, really blurry, or upping my shutter speed and getting banding. And I got banding. And because we don't have an EVF, because there's no blooming room for one, on the back of the screen I thought I got away with it, and then you zoom in and then you can see it as clear as day. So, double compromise. No mechanical shutter and not a good way to monitor the problems that that introduces. If we had a smaller sensor, we could possibly fit in a mechanical shutter, and then we're getting closer to zero compromised camera. Before it becomes into a roast and Panasonic never talk to me again, one thing the Lumix S9 absolutely shines at, in both photo and video, is low light. It's epic. Because you have that excellent sensor that was in the S5 II and the S5 IIX, it's blooming brilliant. And you do have what's called dual native ISO. Dual, not dual. It's another thing that my accent trips people up on. Basically, you have a low ISO and a high ISO, and they are as clean as each other. You also have a degree of ISO invariance. So if you completely mess up a shot, like this, I've done it loads of times. If you completely mess up a shot, you can just up the exposure and the information within the file will look exactly as though you'd taken it with the correct settings. So it really does give you amazing low light performance, low noise, but also wiggle room if mistakes happen. And with the best of intentions, if you're the best photographer ever to walk the planet, in certain high stress situations, you will inevitably make mistakes. Having this sort of sensor with this much information, 95 times out of 100, you'd be able to pull it back with no issues. The only times that you will have a problem is if you do it in the opposite direction and overexpose it, because then if those pixels are just white, you're screwed. And that's the one thing that Micro Four Thirds just doesn't compete with. Whenever you pull up the exposure, if you've exposed something incorrectly, you will introduce noise into the scene. So if you were shooting on a smaller sensor, we just need to be more aware of our settings. If, hand on heart, and I would love your opinion on this in the comments, would you rather have all of the compromises fixed and have a Micro Four Thirds version of the S9, or in those 1 in every 1,000 shots where you screw up, you would rather have a little bit more grace in the data in the files? I would pick Micro Four Thirds every single day of the week, and I regret nothing. And one phrase, which I obviously didn't make up, but I have stolen, I often say, does a camera spark joy? I've experienced this many, many times, and hopefully you have too, and you don't think I'm crazy. When you get a new camera or a new lens, and you're just giddy and you want to try it, and maybe you just put it on straight away and you go and take pictures of blooming daffodils in your back garden, or your cat, or your dog, that thing where you just want to take photographs for the joy of it, I get every time, even a year later with the S9, because I find it thoroughly creative and interesting to see how my preset looks out of camera. I think it's so cool. You could even see photos and compositions. You think, oh, the colours look nice on those deck chairs, for example, where you may not have overly been bothered had you not seen how it looks with your style upon it. I've been ranting so long my battery died. Sorry, shan't keep you any longer. I just wanted to shout out my friend Josh Cameraman. I call him Josh Cameraman as a joke, and I genuinely said that like without thinking. Josh Cameron. And he has been like the pioneer of the S9 since it's came out. I've been to many places with him and his S9, like Greece and Norway and Lisbon. We've done a good amount of traveling together and it's been wonderful. And he always has like the most obnoxiously perfect Instagram stories wherever we go. Like in Greece, God bless it, I was shooting with like the GH5, so there's no way I'm sharing anything until I've got it and I've edited it with an inch of its life. He was like sat down with a beer in the 40-degree heat. There we go, there's 25 images for the story already with his preset on. He's got a banging real-time look preset. I'll link his and mine in the description. So my point being, I did get a little bit wayward there, is cameras have been good for a very, very long time. If older cameras, cheaper cameras spark joy, great. If big full frame cameras spark joy, whatever. If you find a camera that you really like and you like the features of, then go for it and make sure that it inspires you. The S9 has a lot to love on that front, which I've discussed in this video at length, and also a lot of things that annoy me, which I've probably discussed more. Sorry, Panasonic. But yeah, make a Micro Four Thirds one, man. Then I can stop moaning and everyone will be happy. The end. Yeah, that was a flawless take. That's yeah, that's see you next time.